I've seen too many people rush out the door with a bargain basement TV, only to end up wrestling with washed-out colors or a picture that looks like it belongs in a dimly lit bedroom. The disappointment hits hard when you finally sit down to watch a movie and the screen can't keep up with the lighting in the room. That's why I wanted to pause before I said yes to the LG 83-inch class OLED evo AI 4K G5 series. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The first thing I thought about was the sheer size. 83 inches is a statement piece, and it forces you to think about where you'll actually put it. In my own living room, the TV ends up anchored to a wall that already has a large window, so I tested it during both bright afternoon sun and late-night movie sessions. What surprised me was how well the Brightness Booster Max handled the glare. The panel pushed enough lumens to keep the image readable without washing out the deep blacks that OLED is famous for. In a bright room, you often have to dim the lights or add curtains, but this model gave me the confidence to keep the curtains open and still see detail in a sports broadcast. That brightness advantage is directly tied to the Alpha 11 AI processor Gen 2. It's not just a marketing term. The processor actively analyzes each frame and decides how to allocate light and color on the fly. I tried a fast-moving soccer match, and the motion handling felt fluid, without the soap opera effect you sometimes get on lower-end OLEDs. The AI super upscaling also helped when I streamed at 1080p. Documentary sharpness and texture were noticeably improved, as if the source had been filmed in 4K. For someone who watches a mix of streaming services, Blu-ray discs, and occasional game streams, that adaptability felt like a genuine daily benefit. Now let's talk sound. Dolby Atmos is built in, and the TV's built-in speakers are tuned to deliver a more immersive experience than the typical TV speaker array. When I played a Dolby-encoded Netflix film, I could actually feel the direction of rain and the subtle rustle of leaves. It isn't a replacement for a dedicated soundbar, but for a family that watches movies together on a budget, it adds a layer of depth without extra hardware. The Wow Orchestra mode, which is essentially a preset that emphasizes orchestral scores, came in handy during a classical music concert I streamed. Instrument separation felt surprisingly clear. One of the biggest selling points for me was the Filmmaker mode. It locks the picture to the creator's intent, removing motion smoothing and automatically adjusting color grading. When I watched a recent indie film, the colors were vivid yet natural, and the shadows retained detail. This is the kind of feature you only notice if you're a cinephile or a content creator who cares about color fidelity. It's not a gimmick. It actually respects the artistic vision, which is a subtle but important value add for anyone who spends more than a few hours a week in front of the screen. Gaming was another test case. The Ultimate Gaming label isn't just hype. The TV supports a 120Hz refresh rate, low input lag, and VRR, variable refresh rate. I connected a next-gen console and played a fast-paced shooter. The lag was barely perceptible, and the screen kept up with rapid scene changes without tearing. If you're a serious gamer, the combination of high refresh and OLED response time makes the G5 a compelling option. However, if you only play casually on a phone or tablet, you might not notice these advantages. So, who should actually consider dropping $5,000 plus on an 83-inch OLED? First, families who already have a spacious living room and want a centerpiece that can serve movies, sports, and gaming without needing a separate picture enhancement box. Second, anyone who values accurate color and deep blacks for home theater use. This isn't a budget TV. It's built to deliver a premium experience. Third, people who appreciate the convenience of built-in AI, upscaling, and voice control via Alexa, because the WebOS platform is smooth enough that you rarely need a remote for anything beyond power and volume. Who should walk away? If your apartment is under 1,200 square feet and you have limited wall space, the sheer size could dominate the room and make it feel cramped. Also, if you're a strict budget shopper, the price point of an OLED that large is steep, and you could get a solid QLED with decent HDR for a fraction of the cost, though you'd lose the perfect blacks and the AI processing edge. Lastly, if you plan to use the TV as a primary monitor for work or as a computer display, you'll run into the usual OLED burn-in concerns after static UI elements sit for hours, even though LG's newer panels mitigate this risk. For a dedicated home theater setup, it's fine, But for a dual-purpose office gaming station, a high-refresh IPS monitor might serve you better. The downsides are subtle, but worth noting. The TV's power consumption jumps when you crank the brightness for a bright room setting.